When it comes to Harley-Davidson's 2025 model year, we've talked about the good stuff. Now it's time to talk about the rest of it. Now, because this is YouTube, that intro leads into some of the bad stuff, but there is good stuff here too, and we're going to cover all of that in just a second. But before I go too far into this, I want to let you guys know that this is going to look a little bit different because, in a manner of speaking, we've got a special guest in today's video. As it turns out, Zeitz has done a handful of interviews talking about how he came to be in Harley-Davidson, what the brand means to him, what his job at Harley-Davidson has been like, as well as some of the future. And I think it's important that, for context, we listen to it straight from him, because you've heard my unfiltered opinion, but it's time to actually hear it from the guy who's making the decisions. But before we get there, we've got to talk about the bikes. You're gonna have to forgive me for a quick and dirty interjection here because I'm actually on the road. This is not normally where I film or edit, but I have to ask you a quick question. Are you sad and lonely this Valentine's Day? Because Cardo finally has something for you. Normally their Valentine's Day sales, they do it on the duos and usually don't need more than one Cardo. But this time, they've got 22% off their entire store. So if you want to get a Cardo so you can get started for the season, click that link down in the description below and get yourself 22% off. And with that, let's get on the road.
Alright, so it's kind of hard to talk about the big twin offerings from Harley-Davidson without me starting out by saying, like usual, it has left me disappointed. I don't know why I still hold these higher expectations for the V-twins, the big twins. I want to see something cooler come out of the Milwaukee 8s, because the thing with those bikes is they're solid. Every single one of those Milwaukee 8 motorcycles is a really great bike. They're really expensive, and we'll talk about that again a little bit later, but I've never ridden a Milwaukee 8 and been like, you know what? Nah. They've all got a lot of character. They're fun. The torque is great. It is nice to see an increase in power in these bikes. They're now pushing closer to 114 horsepower out of 117 cubes. They're on that high output motor. That's a good amount of power out of that bike. It really is. When you consider that this bike right here is making like 66 and 72, and the Lowrider S weighs like 700 and something pounds, to this thing's 556, I think, and it's making almost twice the power. Yeah, okay, it'll boogie. And the Lowrider S and the ST handle really well. They're nice handling motorcycles. Another thing that's really nice about the Lowrider specifically is they fixed the dashboard. They gave it a Sportster's dashboard. And I'm not joking. It really looks like it came right off of maybe the Iron, like the modern version of it. They're actually, I'm going to put up a picture. This is what the factory custom drop-in dashboard for the Sportster looks like. It's what a lot of the Sportster guys go to because the Roadster has the best dashboard, and this is basically a factory option that looks like the Roadster's dashboard. And the Lowrider now has a very similar looking dashboard, which is so much better than the teeny tiny little calculator dash it used to have. So credit where it's due. There are some very nice upgrades, but these feel very mid-year refreshy, you know? They don't feel like generational updates. They don't feel like something where if you have a Softail from last year, you don't need to run in and grab the new Softail. You just don't. Sure, the high output motor might be making a little bit more power, but I'd reckon with the money that you probably already spent, you're making the power that you need. And there was once a great poet who said, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And once again, it feels like Harley-Davidson is reintroducing us to the same old, same old. Now here's something interesting that I want to do to break up this video a little bit, because there is one man in the motorcycling industry who is perhaps the most downvoted name of all time. He is much maligned by Harley riders and non-Harley riders alike. His name is Jochen Zeitz, and honestly, nobody gives him the time of day. So I'm going to hand this back to Spite in the office, because I got something interesting that I want to show you.
This is going to feel a little bit odd because I'm pulling interview clips from two different sources, and I'll have the links down in the description below. The first thing that I want to play for you guys is Zeitz talking about what he did at Puma, and this is from an interview he did with Danger Dan.
I mean, from what I read, I mean, you did some pretty remarkable turnarounds there, and like kind of changing the way that the brand marketed and pushed the product, and you know, just tried some new things, I guess.
Totally.
You know,
we were a small player. We were non-existent. You know, when I took over the company, we did $100 million in sales. I left, we did over $3 billion, and I just had to reposition the company completely in the brand and enter into categories that the company wasn't in, the brand wasn't in, and just do things differently, getting into Formula One, racing, low profiles, just new looks, and making, you know, sneakers cool.
What led you to kind of think differently outside the box? Was that just
well, if you're the smallest,
you
know, the smallest and the most undesirable, and nobody wanted to buy you, you kind of have to reinvent yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I knew we had a big brand name that was quite recognized around the world, but we didn't have any product. We had no marketing. There was no marketing department when I started. I mean, you couldn't even think of that today. There was no social media. There was no internet, right?
Yeah.
So it was.
That's why I was asking what year it was.
Going for,
Now, a little bit further into that interview, he talks about what he's done at Harley Davidson.
How far advanced you guys are
so
working?
the bikes we just brought out last year, the CVOs, the Road Glide, Street Glide, and the new touring bikes, we started in 2021, and they were not on the schedule. So, look, the strategy was it was called More Roads, and it was really thinking about new roads, untried and tested roads, and
that's how you verbalized it or communicated that?
Without focusing on the business that made the company, you know, great and big over the 120 years. Mm-hmm. And I said, what do you mean? So you kind of stopped selling your bestseller because you don't believe in it. And so we remodeled the entire product portfolio and put the focus back to where it should be, you know, in touring and softail, trikes, and there was no development because everything was in new categories that were unproven for us and that wouldn't have led to any profits and would have basically said we stopped selling our best sellers because we don't believe in them anymore, which is crazy, right?
Now here's him reiterating that in another interview, talking about how pruning some of these models and getting rid of the More Roads initiative is what really put Harley back on the map.
Because we had a lot of bikes that weren't really focusing on our core customer or core riders at all. There was no plan for touring, there was no plan for softail, there was no plan for trikes. And that's the core of the business. And we were sort of dabbling into everything in all the other categories that we had little to no experience in. But we were not looking after our core business. So in this dramatic time of COVID, to put that strategy completely on its head, that was probably the most significant decision. And if we hadn't done that, we'd be in a lot of trouble right now as a company.
Now I'm going to play a clip from just a little bit earlier in that interview where he's talking about trying to grow the brand and bring new riders in.
That's key. We have to get more people to ride, and lowering that entry sort of threshold or barrier to riding is what it's all about. And once you are in it, I mean, it's just the most exhilarating experience. But we got to get more folks to ride. I mean, I just convinced my wife to get her her license, and she asked me what I wanted for my birthday. I said that you get a motorcycle license.
That's a good one.
And she got it.
And the last thing I want to play for you is another clip from the end of this interview where he's talking about some of the philosophy of the old guard. This is More Roads era C-suite Harley Davidson.
You know, I urge my leadership team to go out and ride and go to the rallies, and you know, the previous team was sort of saying, we don't need to go to Sturgis, we know our customer. I was like, that's a pretty arrogant way of thinking about it. And I mean, for me, that's the fun part of the job. You know, when you get frustrated and, you know, this job is not always easy, the best thing to do is just go out and ride and meet folks, go to Sturgis, go to Daytona, go to Born Free. So it's not just because I love to go. It's not that I just go because it's part of my job. I don't look at this as my job. I look at this as a passion, and that's the funnest part of the job, is to actually go out, ride, and meet people.
Now I'm going to leave links to both of these interviews in the description down below, because I am very obviously cherry picking some language because I don't have time to make an entire 2.5 hour reaction video here. It is important to know that there's a ton of context that is not available in this video. So please, if you're interested in this subject, go check them both out. Links are down in the description. Sure, perhaps the C-suite didn't want to go to Sturgis because they thought that they knew the core customer brand. But the funny thing is, everything that you heard Zeitz say is the same thing I hear people saying about him, is that he's disconnected from the riders. He also pointed out in an earlier part of some of these interviews, specifically in the Danger Dan one, that he didn't have his first Harley Davidson until after he was CEO of Puma. I think that's a little bit unintentionally salient. But getting back to the Road Glide and Street Glide, the investment in the core product, has the Street Glide and has the Road Glide really changed? There has been an aesthetic upgrade in 2023. There have been suspension upgrades. The motor has gotten bigger. But has it fundamentally changed? Has the touring frame fundamentally changed? Not really.
After hearing everything that Zeitz had to say, we got some news from Harley Davidson that is, from the outside looking in, somewhere between apocalyptic and Armageddon. Why do I say it's that bad? Well, there has been a drop of, conservatively, $400 million in operating revenue for the motor company. I mean, that's bad. Not only that, but dealership sales to dealers are down over 50%. Now, everybody's doing that right now. Companies are noticing that people are buying fewer and fewer motorcycles. Dealers are holding on to bikes longer, so you know what? We're not going to sell nearly as many bikes to dealers, and this has been Harley's plan for a long time. What I don't get is how they can go and drop that number by 50%. Then also say there has been an 8% increase in sales in their core demographic, that being the expensive touring bikes, the trikes, and the rest of the Grand American Touring line. They've also cut staff by 7% this year. I mean, to me, that signals a brand that is shrinking, not one that is growing. And you heard Zeitz specifically call out wanting to get more people on bikes, right? And again, I mentioned this earlier, but it's very telling that Jochen Zeitz could not or did not buy his first Harley until he was a CEO. The vast majority of my audience, I would assume, is not out there ready to spend $30,000, $40,000 on a Harley. And this comes at a time where Indian is reporting growth in their smaller bikes. They're selling a lot of Scouts. And this is why I'm happy to see Harley Davidson bring out, or drop the price rather, of the Nightster to $10,500. That bike needs to be $10,500. Ideally, it would be $9,999. It's an amazing deal, in my opinion, at $10,000. $10,500? Yeah, okay, it's a little expensive, but Harley prices, right? If Ducati can get away with it, Harley can get away with it. I simply do not see how, in a world where Harley Davidson wants to grow the brand, becoming this premium luxury brand that only serves the older, the more affluent rider, helps. This is one thing where I don't have an answer to it. I don't see where they're coming from with this, and I can't see, because Zeitz himself says that he needs more riders, that we need more riders. They're proud of the Rider Academy. those bikes aren't soft tails. Those bikes are the XR 350 or the 350 X350R. I don't remember what it is. It's the badged Benelli. How do you get more people into the brand when you don't have an offering for them? And this is where I have hope, right? This is where I have hope. We're at the tail end of the Hardwire initiative. Harley runs their named business strategies in 5-year increments. In 2020, we saw the end of More Roads and the beginning of Hardwire. We're now in 2025, so I imagine in the next few months, maybe 6 months to 9 months, we're going to see the next named business strategy. And it's going to be really telling to see what that business strategy is. Because if Hardwire was a temporary reset, then it all makes sense to me. Then it really, truly does make sense to me. You know, you get the core audience on board with the Pan America, slowly weaning them off the same bike that they've always been riding and showing the core rider, holy cow, look at how fast this is. Because that's what I hear all the time from the old guard Harley riders who get on the Pan America for the first time. They're like, oh, damn, I didn't know a bike could be that fast. And if we're seeing a slow and steady approach to growth, okay, I'm here for it. It's taking too long for me because I want the next best thing now because I'm an American consumer and I have been born and bred to think like this. But I'm willing to wait a little bit. I mean, I'll turn this into a track bike and have some fun with it. I'll turn a Pan America into a track bike and have some fun with it. But eventually, we're going to want something new. It also feels so contradictory for Zeitz to be like, we needed to do bold new things at Puma to revitalize that brand and make it interesting. And then you come to Harley and you're like, we need to do the exact opposite. And then to see like negative financial returns every quarter, but still see an improvement in like small ways. It feels like we're seeing small improvements here and there, and then these like massive negative percentages surrounding it. But I don't know, that's why I'm not a CEO. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think that Hardwire has been successful? Do you think that they need to slowly bring out new stuff, or that they should just release something wild right out of the gate? And I know people are just going to be like, Bronx, but Bronx be dead. I'm sorry. Bronx be dead. Pour one out for the old Harley Bronx, because we ain't never going to see it. At least I don't think so. That's the sad truth that I've come to realize. Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below, and if you are still here at this point in the video, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. It really does help out the channel. And right now, we are on the cusp. We're on the cusp of ticking over 150,000. So, you out there watching could be number 150,000. So, I have no way of tracking that, but I don't know. Buy you a cookie. Catch you guys in the next one. See you later.